Now, stakeholders hold varied opinions on the recent Afrobarometer report by the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, which highlights a historic dip in public trust towards Ghanaian institutions. Now, the Round 10 report, focusing on trust in institutions, corruption, perceptions and elections, show widespread doubts about the Electoral Commission's ability to conduct free, fair and transparent elections. It also suggests that honesty, character and campaign promises will significantly influence voter choices in the 2024 elections. There's more in this report by my colleague Christopher Kevin Asima.
An alarming 74% of Ghanaians believe corruption is rising, though this marks a slight improvement of 3% from the previous year. Findings from the latest Afrobarometer report reveals that only 26% of Ghanaians feel they can report corruption without fear of retaliation, a 4% decline since 2022. This data underscores a historic erosion of trust in public institutions. According to the report, the Ghana Police Service, the Presidency, tax officials, members of parliament, judges and magistrates are among the most distrusted institutions, largely due to perceived corruption. Concerns over institutional integrity extends to the Electoral Commission, as many citizens question its capacity to ensure free, fair elections. Dr. Edem Solomon, Director of Research at CDD Ghana, highlighted the steady decline in public confidence in democratic institutions, a trend persisting since 2012, regardless of changes in government.
The level of perceived corruption in institutions like the police, who have topped the charts, all these years that we've been conducting Afrobarometer surveys, have not changed. They're still at the top. But we've seen new entrants like, people in the office of the president. You even see electoral commission in there. And it's an election year. Why would people think that the electoral commission is corrupt? And these are concerning. For me, these are some of the findings that jump me as somebody who works in an organization that promotes governance, and democratic governance. As it's becoming a challenge, to the work that we've been doing this year.
Public perception of corruption remains high, with 74% of Ghanaians reporting an increase over the past year, despite a mirror improvement from 2022 levels. This is, however, a slight rise in those exploring alternative selection methods for leadership, though election remains the preferred approach with strong support for this tradition since 2002. Speaking to ChannelOne News, stakeholders from different political backgrounds voiced mixed reactions to the report's findings.
Governance is all about perception. When people perceive something to be a particular situation, it determines how they respond when there's developments around these institutions. Knowing that we have less than 3 months to the elections, if people perceive the Electoral Commission to be corrupt, then trust in the outcome of the election is going to be problematic. And that is why we from the movement have been calling severally that the EC should be more transparent in its operations. They should open up. And that's why we supported the call for the forensic audit of the register to establish the independence, the trust in the Electoral Commission. Unfortunately, they seem not to be interested in that, and that is worrying and very troubling.
If the president's office, the president himself is corrupt, why will I be afraid to also go into corrupt deals? You understand what I mean? So, yes, I agree with them, but I would have suggested, if I were to express my view, the office of the president should have been on top. They should have been the first people to be classified as corrupt. And like I said, it is because that institution is corrupt, that is why those under the institution are also corrupt. Now, somebody will say that, why not talking about Parliament? Parliament is also part of it, okay? Parliament is part of it to the extent that, for instance, you are going for a committee work, and there are instances where they say they are giving you transport, when indeed Parliament has given you transport to go there, and they are giving you transport. We need to pause and ask, where is this coming from?
In fact, quite frankly, I don't think there's any institution in the world that would be not labeled as having issues of some level of perceived corruption. And mind you, there's always one bad apple in every family. And sometimes We glorify the bad apples because bad news sells. There are many media men doing fantastic jobs, but let one media guy mess up, the whole country will hear. Let one pastor mess up, the whole country will hear. If he's done 100 deliveries, the 101th that has a problem, the entire world will go after him. So I also think that there's something amiss with our Ghanaian culture that needs to be looked at carefully.
The report also shows that honesty, character, and campaign promise are key priorities for Ghanaian voters in 2024, with 90% of respondents valuing honesty, 88% character, and 59% campaign promises. This suggests a strong voter preference for personal integrity and trustworthiness over mere political pledges.
We need to vote for a Christ-like leader, and that is simply a leader who has got the character and the honesty for public service. The character and the honesty for public service, who have the love, the compassion to see society become better. So if the Afrobarometer is saying that 90%, want to look at an honest leader, 88% want to look at the character of the leader before they even come to campaign promises, then it means that the message of the movement for change is sinking. It is consistent with the expectations of Ghanaians. And so that is what gives us confidence that the Ghanaian people are listening. This election will not be business as usual, and they will go for the one they know they can trust. And in that expectation, no one comes close to the towering figure of Alan Martin in our politics.
If CDD is saying that Ghanaians are calling for, 90% of Ghanaians are calling for an honest person, then you have to go in for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. If not, then you have to be looking at Alan. And I think that where we are today, you need an experienced person. You need somebody who has been there before. And he is saying that indeed we all have done something wrong to our nation, and that there's a need for us to come together once again to reset Ghana. We're going to reset Ghana. All the sectors of this economy will need a reset. And that is why there's a need for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to be brought back to reset Ghana. The 4 years he's coming to do, I can tell you, a lot is going to happen.
The obvious is not obvious to the ordinary Ghanaian. And that is why I'm just making my argument that for them to say that they want an honest person, my challenge is that are they Ghanaian voters being honest with us as well? And what's interesting is that if you're in England, when you visit a home and you ask them, are you voting blue or red? They'll tell you. And they'll mean it. And election day, they'll do it. But in my humble Afro-Ghana-centric country, you meet your person in their home, you ask them, are you NDC? Are you MPP? Are you whichever party? They'll say Kuri. And then you ask them, this year, are you voting with us or not? They'll say yes. You walk out, you send your nephew to the same house, they'll say no.
Notable institutions such as the Ghana Armed Forces, religious and traditional leaders, and civil society organizations retain a comparatively high level of public trust, according to this report.
The Afrobarometer R10 raises serious concerns about institutional accountability, underscoring the urgent need to build confidence and trust in state institutions, especially the Electoral Commission, as we approach the 2024 general elections. For Channel One News, I am Christopher Kevin Asima, reporting.